Saludos.
Hello, I think that Ranga still doesn't have his headset. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. To the ones that are here, to the ones that are following us through the streaming, you can tweet, you can send your questions. We'll have a Q&A sessions afterwards, but you can send them with the hashtag the future to come, el futuro por venir. I'm Pere Estupiñà. I'm biochemical. I am very well accompanied today. I have Ranga Yogeshwar. I knew that I couldn't say that the first time. Well, he is a physicist, but he has become a very important scientific person in Germany. I also work in Germany. I also work on the TV. I say, well, I've been on TV for 3 seasons, and he told me, well, I've been there for 25 seasons. So it was a little bit impressive. To keep a TV show for 25 years, I mean, well, that's my goal in life. Well, I'll ask a question afterwards to know how to do that. But something that we are saying today, well, you have his resume on the website, all the awards that he has been received. He says that he's becoming into an advisor. There are politicians that call me and they ask me what impact, will the machine learning have in society or other technologies that are being developed. And it's very interesting because we always say that the future, we don't know how the future will be, because the future depends on the decisions that we make. This is why it is important to know the possibilities, the possible scenarios that we could face in order to have a more accurate analysis and to see, depending on the decisions that we make, what future we're going to have. And this is what Ranga does. Because, well, I'm sure that many of you have listened to different points of view of the future. Some of them are more utopic, and other ones are more dystopic, more interested ones, more or less founded. And Ranga has very solid knowledge, but this objectivity of the scientific journalist that gives him the possibility of having a more accurate diagnosis. You'll see that he doesn't give closed answers, but he sets very accurate scenarios. He defines himself as a very optimistic person. In this future, next exit the future, well, he says why we should be happy, etc. But reading this book, I don't know if it is so optimistic. I'm sure that in the field of technology, some of you, well, I went through that a week ago. I was having a coffee in Barcelona. The barman came along and he asked me, what do you want? And I said, well, a coffee and a coffee with milk. And he took the machine to register that coffee and that white coffee. And it took some time for him to use that machine just to order a coffee and a white coffee. After that, he came back because something was not working. And I said, well, I don't know if technology is working. And he starts complaining. Well, we know that. He starts complaining about the fact that his coffee machine broke up. Well, the conventional coffee makers, coffee machines worked very well. So I don't know, well, I mean, he speaks a little bit about this. I don't know if it's an excess or not, this excess of dependency of technology. I hope that he can speak about that too. And before giving the floor to him, I would like to end up with a sentence. It's not his, but it's at the introduction of the book, and I shared it with part of the team of the El Cazador de Cerebros. It's a sentence from Picasso. It says, I'm not looking for, I find. I find. I think that scientific journalists, we do this. It's something very interesting. When you try to look for something, well, maybe you have more odds to finding it. But if you are an entomologist that's looking for spiders in the Amazon jungle, maybe you'll find spider, but maybe there's a bush that you haven't seen, and maybe you missed that. My team always tells me, when you go to a lab to make an interview, just stick to the questions that you want to answer. You have to look for a question. And what happens is, when you get to a lab, the scientists start to tell you things, and without looking for that, you find many things. And I think that this attitude of not wanting to find something, to pay attention to it, people, in my case the scientists, but in the society, well, other things that could be surprising. I think that this open mind is the creativity source, is the source of finding things that we had not foreseen. So I close the introduction. I give the floor to Ranga. After that, we'll have a Q&A session with you all. Okay, so thank you very much.
Buenas tardes. Good evening. Unfortunately, hablo español un poquito. So if I want to speak about the future, I have to switch to English. And I'm very happy to be here today. And I would like to speak about, well, change. Good evening. I have friends from Madrid who are here. It's great. I want to speak about a world which is changing a lot, and if it's changing, some of us are afraid. Now, if we sort of think of change and we go back in history, the interesting thing is we are the products of change. If you take the biography of our planet and of life, you see that there were even phases of dramatic change. Meteorites, climate change, volcano explosions, which sort of led to a dramatic sort of resetting of the life on Earth. And now in science we know 5 of these big catastrophes. The last one, all the children know them, the red dot here, was 60 million years ago, when a meteorite sort of ended the life of the dinosaurs. But that was the end of the dinosaurs, but it was the beginning of us. So we, in a certain way, are the product of changes. And nowadays many people say, oh, what is going to happen to us in the future? Because we have machines. We have new changes happening. And some are afraid that in a couple of years or decades, this could be us. Sort of a model outdated, something which, was there. Homo sapiens, bye-bye, and new machines, welcome. This is one of the dystopia we have, and we can think of innovation as something which is changing our planet. If you look at the planet, you can see that innovation has dramatically changed the landscapes, the nature, the number of species, or the Earth at night, which with innovation in the last 100 years is lit up. Now, if you think of innovation and you want to think of the future, it's always difficult. If I would be an historian looking back, it's much easier. I can go to archives, I can have a look, and I get answers. But looking into the future is difficult. Why? Because I don't know what is going to come, and very often our perspective is distorted. One easy way to cross-check is, what did people think of the future 100 years back? There are some examples, you can see them, like here. This was the imagination of people 1900. What would theater look like in the year 2000? So in 100 years from then. And what is interesting is you can see people anticipated what I would call television. So you have the theater here, and you have some sort of an apparatus. One didn't know how it would work, but you have a projection on that side, and he is listening. So it's foreseeing television in a certain way. But this example also shows you that we always are stuck in our perspective. Because if you have a close look, the fashion of the year 2000 looks a bit different from this. I mean, if I look at you, you didn't come in these clothes. So we always stick to old views when we look of the future. And the big question is, well, what is going to happen now? Now that we have technology coming in, that we have the digital age coming in, what is going to be our future? So first of all, what is important is to realize that the main driving force is technology. It's not magic. There's nothing magical happening. And I'll give you one example. I have a mobile phone, and I always change them, you know, every second generation. I mean, you have a collection of mobile phones if you are always there. But this mobile phone of mine has a capacity of 256 gigabytes of memory. Huh? Now, I'm a physicist. I'm a particle physicist. And particle physicists love computers. And what you see here in the background is the computer center when I was working as a scientist. And you can see here, these are washing machines, look like washing machines. These were the memories of the big computers, the disks. One washing machine had 500 MB storage capacity. So just imagine now in my mobile phone, I have 500 washing machines. Or in other words, in my pocket, I have more storage capacity than the entire computer center of these days. And this is true not only for the storage capacity, but also for the computer power. And I want to show you one very personal picture, because as a physicist, I worked with high-speed computers. And 1984, I had the European record in high-speed computing. You can see me here. My wife always said, I look terrible. Okay, she's perhaps true, but I had a supercomputer in those days, a Cray XMP, which cost $15 million, and which I was able to have a speed of 200 MFLOPS, that is 200 mega floating point operations. You don't have to remember the word, just think of speed. The speed was 200 for $15 million. Now, you can buy a small computer on your desk for under 2,000 euros, and it has not 200 but 22 million megaflops. So in other words, in my pocket, in my mobile phone, I have the storage capacity of a big computer center, and on my desk, I have the computer power of all the supercomputers some years back. This is progress. And this is the door opening up which really changes everything. So if we speak nowadays of artificial intelligence, the reason is our computers have become very powerful. Now, we can see it in our mobile phones. Mobile phones are very complex. I have to speak about mobile phones in a building like Telefónica, isn't it? Mobile phones are showing us a number of qualities. Number one, they're very complex. They're full of sensors. They have cameras. They can compute things in a very fast way. But we see two phenomena which are interesting. One is not only speed, but it's a global phenomenon. I travel throughout the world, and everywhere I come, the same picture. Descartes said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Nowadays, one would have to say, photo ergo sum. Everyone wants to make a selfie. And this is throughout the cultures, so you can see it here, everywhere. It can be in China, in Egypt, in Israel, in Japan, wherever, the same picture. It seems like the world has picked up a same or similar grammar. And what we have to realize is it changes us. It changes the grammar we communicate, we go along. And you can see it in the media. In an abstract way, this is the old picture, for example, of media. You had a sender, and you had the receivers, the viewers. You say the viewers because you just viewed. The listeners. You didn't talk with the radio program, you listened. This is the old picture, and this, in a disruptive way, is changing into a new picture which is looking like this, where everybody is a receiver and a sender, where in all, we sort of start changing the structure of our society, and where this disruptive change sort of empowers people to do new things. One result are platforms. Platforms for different things. If you book a travel, you use a platform. If you use Airbnb, you use Uber. Or if you go to India, driving an auto rickshaw is quite an adventure. It was quite an adventure because you had to deal for the price and he would take a detour. Now, the new grammar, the new digital grammar, well, it's not anymore really an adventure. You know where he is, you can localize him, you can speak to him, you have the route, so it changes a grammar within us. And these platforms make people rich, and you can just realize the change we have in industry if you look at the most precious companies in the year 98, 2008, and this year. And even this year I would have to correct the numbers because the numbers are changing. But what you can see in red are all the platforms, the IT companies, and you see we have a strong dominance globally of IT companies. Now what happens is not only we are making them rich, but we are changing the way we communicate. The grammar is changing. And you could say we are living through the inversion of flow. What do I mean? Mass media have become the media of the masses. And you see that not only in the media, but also in many other fields. So the old picture where you have a family united in front of a TV screen, which was the picture I had in my childhood, has changed. Now you have people like this guy who sort of spreads out Twitter, and just imagine he has a mass medium with himself, very personal. And the inversion is clear because he sends a Twitter. After that, the newspaper brings an article or the TV shows arguments. It would have been the other way around before. Now it changes. And we can see it in social networks like Facebook, and we live through it in already seeing that this grammar changes and sometimes destabilizes our societies. I mean, you hopefully are very aware of scandals like Cambridge Analytica at the beginning of this year. And if we really want to understand it, what is important is that within social media, something old has changed. If you read a newspaper like El País, everybody had the same newspaper. We shared the same information. In the social networks, everybody is being targeted. Your interest, your interest, your interest. And specifically for your interest, we give you tailor-made information. And this could even go deeper because it changes the grammar of societies. So I'll give you just one example because there hasn't been enough thought about it in the context of this scandal. If you take the society, and I could do the same, social networks do that, and you could start doing a profile of political directions. Let's say in this audience some are more on the red side, some are more on the blue side. I can decide that as a network. And then I could start by an algorithm of saying, okay, I want to interconnect the red ones. So what is going to happen is the red ones will receive informations from the other red ones. What happens is you have the feeling, oh, there are many of agreeing with me, many having the same ideas, whereas the blue people are not interconnected because the algorithm says, okay, we won't connect them. And this change can be made by the platform. So what happens is, in nowadays grammar, we can start changing the way groups form. And this is very essential for democracies. And we have groups forming just through social networks. Sometimes you have echo chambers, as you call them. So, things boil up and things get very, very crazy. So what does that mean? That means we don't have any more one truth, we suddenly have many truths. And what we see is that these mechanisms are fueled by commercial interests. Because the Googles, the Facebooks, they say, connecting the world. They don't connect the world. They want to make money. They want to make money. They want to tailor-make your profile and give you advertising tailored for you. And in order to be successful, they want to have you online most of the time. Now, how does that work? With attention. So we are right now living through a war of attention, of hysteria, of things we read and we see, oh, and we forward them to the others. And this goes very fast. And this year, we have understood that the spreading of information is not the spreading of truth. There's been an analysis finding out that, well, false news spreads 6 times faster, reaches 6 times faster 1,500 people than true news. So in a certain way, we live through a breakup of our society and we see destabilizing effects, and we see that in the midst of what we would call an information age, at the beginning the internet was called the information highway, we slowly are not living in an information age, but perhaps in a disinformation age, or an age of credulity. Because the discrepancy between facts and perception is getting more and more great. I'll give you 2 examples. Migrants are fueling the news nowadays. I'm from Germany, and believe me, every week we have talk shows speaking about migrants. Europe is slowly closing the borders. You have nationalism coming up. We have democracies even in Europe at stake. An old model, and suddenly it gets more and more secluded, nationalistic, even racist. Now, if you ask a very simple question in Germany, how many migrants are in your population? What is the percentage? People will say 30%. The truth is half. And this is not only the case in Germany, this is the case in this study from Harvard University, in the US, in Sweden, in Italy, in Britain. So everywhere we see a similar phenomenon, where in the midst of the information age, the perception is in total discrepancy with the facts. So we could ask, okay, what is happening right now? And you can see it even in a very actual example I want to give you, because last week I was in Japan, and I was lucky because Tasuku Honyo, I had a meeting with him, the guy on the left side. You will read of him, or you have read of him, because he's going to be awarded this year's Nobel Prize in Medicine. So we had a lunch, we had fixed the lunch before the Nobel Committee phoned him, and he was very kind, we had the lunch. And he told me the story of Rico. In Japan, just as in Spain, you have a vaccination against the papilloma virus, which is the only vaccination against a cancer, which is very important. Young girls should take it before their first sex. This vaccination saves many, many lives. In Japan, before, you had about 28,000 a year catching this cancer, with about 5,000 women dying. The vaccination rate in 2013 in Japan was 70%. And now came fake news. Some ideas of people saying, oh, this is dangerous. And this fake news started spreading, although it was really fake, because Rico, she's a scientist herself, analyzed and said, questioned, what is this for a science claiming that it's dangerous? It was really fake science. But what happened was, the news spread, and now, this year, the vaccination rate is below 1%. So this shows you very clearly that the impact of false news can, as a consequence, even cost lives. In the year 2018. So you see, we have an impact. You see it that slowly we have to fight for the rules of enlightenment, for science. I mean, I organized a demonstration last year in Berlin, which was called March for Science. I mean, it's strange in the year 2018 to do a march for science. I thought we are in medieval times. Perhaps we could do that. In the times of Galileo, perhaps, we could do a march for science. But 2017 in Berlin, 11,000 people, and this shows we have a dramatic impact already without artificial intelligence, just by the change of the grammar of communication. But now let's look into machine learning, which is one of the very promising fields, artificial intelligence. Now many people speak about it, very few really understand what it is, but it is not so complicated. Basically, we all have something which is a wonder, which is a brain. We are born, we are able to learn, we are able to think. So something magic is happening in the brain. This is my brain. You can see it, my nose, look at my nose, look at here. When I show this picture in Germany, you see there is brain. This is good news for people working in television as me. This is not trivial. The brain structure, if you come to think of it, has neurons, brain cells interconnected to other neurons. They form a huge structure. There are many brain cells in most of the people, many brain cells interconnected with others. And this interconnection is something which you can start simulating on a computer. The theory of these brain cells is quite old. It goes back to the 1970s. So it's really old stuff from a scientific point of view, but with the computer power nowadays, we can start calculating the reaction of a single brain cell, of this virtual brain cell, and we can do that not only with one, but with a big network. So we have many networks of brain cells, so-called brain cells, which we now, by a computer, we can control. And the magic is that we can do things which were unconceivable before. Things which are easy for us, but which were very hard for computers. I'll give you one example. If you take numbers, you have numbers, and I would ask you to mark all the numbers 3. This is very easy for us. Every school child can do it. But if you have a close look, the 3 here is written in a quite different way than the 3 here or the 3 down there. So although they have variations, we are able with our brain to sort of pinpoint and say, this is a tree. This is a human. This is a screen. We are able to do things where computers failed. And with neural networks, exactly this is now possible. And you can do things which are fantastic. Not only looking at numbers and deciphering numbers, but you can do it with pictures, you can do it with voice. And due to all the algorithms, we are now coming into a phase where the error rate, which you can see here, is going down, down, down. And you see the orange line, that's us, that's humans. This is looking and identifying pictures, image recognition. And you can see that, well, in the last years, the machines make less errors than we. So in other words, the machines are getting superhuman, better than us. So this shows you a very practical example. And I took some examples to show you, and I want to make an experiment with you, if you agree, because you can use pictures, you can use numbers, you can use sound, you can use music. You can feed music into such a network, and the network will learn music and will be able at the end to compose music. And we'll together now do what we call the Turing Test, okay? So I will give you examples, and you will all have to vote, is this a machine composing something and playing it, or is it a human composing and playing it, okay? That's the rule. I have some examples, so you have to listen, and you have to just ask yourself, is this a machine or a human being? I hope the question is clear. Here is my first example. Okay. Who of you says it's a human? Raise the hands. Who says it's a machine? Okay. I won't tell you the answer right now. Just keep in mind what you think. I'll give you example 2. Okay? Again, is it a machine or is it a human? Who says it's a human? Who says it's a machine? You say it's a machine. These are my daughters. These are my daughters playing. The first was a machine. The second are my daughters. I'm so proud. I always love to. Okay, a hard third example, okay? This is really hard. Who says this is a machine? This is a human? Human? Who says a machine? Honest question. Who is unsecure? Who is unsecure? You realize something? We feel unsecure. We cannot say, is it a machine or a human being? This is something very emotional because we are speaking of music. Huh? And we feel something is changing. And there are examples. I want to show you one example which is well known, which was done this year because machines start talking. Machines start listening. You know, in my book I have a whole chapter just on the voice. And here is a digital assistant, a machine, sort of making a telephone call to a hairdresser, speaking with a lady, a machine with a lady, and making an appointment. And the interesting thing is, the lady does not realize that it's a machine. This was developed this year. It was launched by Google. You might know it.
Just event. Hur laat så advocated
Wait,
församling.
I'm wrong. Here it is.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut.
This is
for a
the
client.
machine?
I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
This is the human being.
Sure, give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have it at 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Well, this shows you already interesting questions. Should a machine say, Should a machine not have to identify itself and say, hello, I am a machine? Just imagine in a couple of years I make a phone call here in Madrid. I have this lovely voice and I say, hello, shall we meet in the evening? And then I have a machine. We don't want to live through that. So I think so we have to think of it. By the way, these are the two leading scientists of this so-called Google Duplex project, sitting in a restaurant and the machine ordered the table. So these are young guys pushing forward our world. Now, if you come to think of what is the potential, we have to start changing our perspective. I just wrote a book, which is being published here in Spain. Now, if we together think of the future of books, first of all, I think so, although it's a pity, we could agree that in the future more and more books are going to be electronic books. Not books of paper, but books which you read on a tablet. There are many arguments. It's cheaper, you can distribute them, it's not so heavy. I read many, many books, so I don't have to carry so much weight when I travel. So we have a new book on a reader. I was in Stockholm, and there is a company which develops small cameras which do eye tracking. And your reader, your electronic reader, just as your phone, has a camera. And this eye tracking is quite great because if you read and if you end at the end of the page, the system automatically flips. You don't have to flip pages anymore. It's quite practical. Now you start reading this book, and first of all realize the first time in history that the book knows who is reading. The book knows the reader. Now, it's perhaps not so good idea for school children, you know. As school children, I had to read in school books. You remember that? Now, what is going to happen if you know if a person has read or not? Poor next generation. But what is going to happen is, if you have a story and in chapter 2 you lose your readers, well, we will re-engineer the book because we know, okay, we have to change something so that the audience flow keeps moving. So these new books are going to be great in the sense of stories which hook you up as a reader, where you have to go on reading. Now, in this company in Stockholm, they even showed me that they were working on a prototype camera where it was not only the eye tracking the movement, but also the dilatation of your retina, which is correlated to your feeling, you know? In case you see something which is appealing or you feel afraid or so, you have this dilatation which is unconscious, but which sort of gives you information about the emotion. So now imagine we read this new fantastic book. We read it, it is, as I said, hooking you up. You're reading one chapter, the next chapter. In chapter 4, suddenly in that great story, your friends are part of this story. Yes, the book is very personal. The internet knows you. So your friends are integrated into this book, which makes the suspense even greater. And you read the book and you're totally fascinated. And you slowly start identifying with the main protagonist. He seems to have some empathy. 2 weeks back, you had a flu. And the guy in the book also. It was sort of synchronous. Or 6 weeks back you had your birthday, and in the book was suddenly happy birthday. The book is very personal, and you realize that you start adapting things of the main protagonist. So you are there, and in the morning breakfast, suddenly you have chia seeds for breakfast. You never had them before. But the protagonist does it, and you do it. You start adapting. In chapter 17, your mobile phone sets off. You pick it up. It's the book calling you. And you go on. This story is totally fascinating. In chapter 22, your mobile phone goes off again, and there is this voice saying, hello. We have found some data which is not really worrisome, but we would like to make a cross-check. You should go and see a medical doctor. And we have the freedom, and we already made an appointment. So you look in your diary, and you already have the appointment. You go to the doctor, and you say, hey, doctor, what's happening here? And the doctor says, oh, I have to tell you, this is not a normal book as the books you know. This book has been developed by a big pharmaceutical company because the book reads all the data. The way you look, the way you read, the micro movements of your eye, the voice, all that, and we analyze the data. And in your case, it's good yet to come, because we sort of have signals that there is a high probability that you will catch Parkinson's disease. But it's good that you are there now. We can help you. Now, the story I told you sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's right now happening, one next to the other. So the Parkinson Voice Initiative is one research project in Great Britain where analyzing the voice with the tools of algorithms and machine learning is able to diagnose Parkinson. So in the future we'll see more and more of examples where we have a penetration. And if you come to think of it, I mean, we are already nowadays using technologies. I mean, it goes so fast. We never think of what we are doing. We are using, for example, Face ID. I just had, a couple of weeks back, a company in Germany who are doing photo books. They collect a lot of pictures. You can upload your pictures. They asked for the ethics. And the interesting thing is, what is going to happen if somebody has all your portraits, your selfies, over a long time scale? You can nowadays design machine learning so that they can analyze the faces, and they could perhaps tell you that, oh, here is a person who slowly gets into an alcohol problem. You can read it out of the faces. So we are entering areas where the ethics are not yet sure. Take Alexa, Siri, Google, voice. Yeah? Just look at what they are working on. This is not only well, the standard stuff, but if you look at the patent applications, which everybody can do, you see that in the patents for Amazon, they're speaking of sniffer algorithms, which look at, well, where are words who show you, or the voice and so on, that you have a level of interest. Soft factors. Or here another pattern where, well, can we predict mischief of the individual? If people fight. There are other patterns who would just listen, is somebody coughing? If he's coughing more, oh, they have a medical problem, perhaps we can advertise some anti-flu medicine. So in all this, it's not only the digital age, but we are entering an age where also all the big companies are entering the arena where medical research gets more and more important. Medical research, if you think of an insurance company needs data to predict the future, your future, and to predict the risk so that you pay a certain price in an insurance company. Now, who has the most data? Will we face the next insurances by Google because they have more data than perhaps your insurance company? And the interesting thing is we go on because one of the main things is naturally prediction. So with the data, can I foresee what your next step is? And already nowadays we can see it. If you text on your phone, these are first prediction algorithms who sort of predict what is going to be the next word you type. This is very practical, but these systems learn, and your phone is different from the phone of your neighbors. So at the end, we could end up and question where is our free will, because all this data is read out of us, and at the end, when we take decisions, these decisions are being influenced. So, did you want to buy the red pullover, or were you made to buy the red pullover? So, in a certain way, life where we have a free will, where we believe that we decide, could be influenced to such a way that at the end we don't know, well, are we really masters of ourselves or not? And this goes on, and you can think of, for example, in insurance companies' behavioral policy pricing. Give me your data and I give you a rebate. Give me your data of your activity and I give you a rebate. Now in a couple of years what is going to happen? We will see people jogging. Yeah? And you will ask, oh, you enjoy jogging? And he says, no, I have to jog because of the data, otherwise my policy is going to go up. We have to speak about that. We have to speak about developments which are very important, even writing books. We could question with machines talking to us. Will we start entering a post-text culture? So something before Gutenberg, where we just speak. Or if you have a working instruction, we look at the video. So this is the basis of, the Enlightenment. And you can see first tendencies. We just had the Frankfurt Book Fair. In Germany, from 2012 to 2016, the market lost 6.1 million book buyers. So slowly, less and less books are bought and read. The question is, what is going to happen with toys and young people? If robots start speaking to young people, there is some sort of a trust. There have been some scientific analysis done already with children and Alexa, and the children trust these machines. So all these are interesting questions which we have to raise in the future, but we should not have fear. Now what is important is also to realize that these machines, the magic of the future, neural networks, you feed in the data and they sort of at the end sometimes give you, okay, this was too much, I will restart it. You see, neural networks are not always working the way you want, but what you can see there is, can you trust these systems? Can you trust the systems in the sense that they are reliable? Do you understand these systems in depth? So if you take such systems, right now it's a bit a black box. We don't understand in science what is really happening on the deeper layers. Even the real good scientists don't. And they say what we need in the future is explainable artificial intelligence. We have to understand it. We have to understand what is the data doing. So if a system makes the difference between a dog and a cat, this is magic. But what is really happening on the deeper layers we still do not understand. So right now we have a technology moving forward and we don't understand the rest. The same is true with data bias. So if we feed in data, what is the essence of the data? You can have data bias. As 2 years back, Google, for example, had the identification of pictures, skyscrapers, airplanes, cars, but with black people, the answer was gorillas. Not because Google is bad, but because there was data bias included. So these are things which are happening, and if you look at the end, we have to be careful not to end up in an age where suddenly we have algorithms which are acting a bit like mythical entities saying yes or no. Yeah? Do I get a bank credit? Yes or no? The algorithm says no. We have a society where we still want to have these answers. Now, if you go on and look at biology, the biology part is even more interesting, because you can see that we are starting by machine learning, by artificial intelligence, to change our life. So I'm often in Silicon Valley or in Palo Alto. My smallest daughter is studying there, so I travel there. And it's interesting because even the age is something where now we start looking at, well, how old can a human being get? Can we change the age? Even if you take your own age, you have a passport, but what's your biological age? I did the test, DNA test last year in November. That's the reason I show it to you. I was 58 then, now I'm 59, but my DNA age is 54. Wow, relief. But what does that mean for a society if we have sort of differences? What does that mean for a society looking at pricing, looking at all these things? Now I want to jump and make clear certain things. One is we have a dramatic change. We have new players coming up. It's not Europe. It is the US and it is China. And I just showed you the GDP of some Chinese cities, because even now people are not aware that just the city of Chengdu has the same GDP as Norway. Or if you look at Guangzhou, and it's by far not the biggest city in China, it's comparable to Switzerland. So there is a lot of drive happening. And what is happening in Europe? Not really a lot. I'm very astonished because there is not a lot of activity going on. Perhaps it has to do with the managers. Politics is not really advancing, at least in Germany, and I think so Spain is not much better. And one of the reasons is we can't let loose the old ideas. We don't know, is this really going to work? We have, as John Maynard Keynes said, the biggest problem is not to let people accept new ideas, but to let them forget the old ones. So we need an environment which is more, how shall I say, open to innovation, because we have a lot of possibilities. But let me at the end just question, what is innovation? What is innovation right now? What are we doing? First of all, I could almost in a nasty way say innovation is something which a small, rich, often white minority invents for another small, rich minority. We have some innovations which are fantastic. Like, here is a hearing device for old people, and it will register if you fall, and it will give a signal. This is something very, very good. I mean, my parents grew very old, and I always was worried what is going to happen if they fall. My father was living alone after my mother passed away, and I was worried, well, what is going to happen if he falls and nobody's there? This is great. But we also have innovations which look like this. Neo, you know Neo? Neo is a jar you can put in muesli, and you can look on your mobile phone if it's filled or not. We are all waiting for this innovation to come, isn't it? Or Neuma. This is great. This is a watch with a sensor, and it shows if you have stress. I mean, to me, watches create stress. Or as a friend in Kenya once formulated, you have the watches, we have the time. So we have to think of innovation in a deeper way in a global world. What are we doing for these people? What are we doing for 20-30% of the population of megacities who cannot order anything with Amazon because they don't have an internet connection? They don't even have water. They don't even have sanitation. And this is not only true for the megacities in Asia or in Africa, this is even true for our societies. And this is something we really have to work on. We have to stabilize our societies, because in the last years innovation has been too much of innovation which makes minorities richer, but not the rest. So one of the main aims, I think so, is going to be in the next year's stability. And we can think of a future which is far away. It's nice. It's a bit like a mountaineer climbing the mountain. But just don't forget one thing. Most mountaineers don't die on the summit. They die on the way to the summit. So in other words, we have a huge potential, but we have to look at stability, and that means we have to civilize this digital future. It's a bit the same as with a continent. Huh? I mean, here in Spain, you understand that. Huh? You discover a new continent. Who were the first to come? The conquistadores. They were not really very civilized, I think so. They slaughtered the population, they claimed, they were like cowboys. But slowly, the world got more civilized, and there were rules, and there were acceptance and tolerance. So we have to think of that in the same way. We have to think of ethics in many areas, like if we think of artificial intelligence, well, should we invest in artificial intelligence and have autonomous machines which could kill other people? No, we don't want that. I don't want it, and I hope you also don't want it. And the interesting thing is, even the people with Google don't want it. So we have to think of these questions. But in the end, I believe that we are entering all the same, with all the criticism I say, an age of wonders. Why? Because progress had always been a success story for humans. Just think back. I mean, just imagine, would you like to live in the year 1718 or 2018? I mean, if you get ill, do you want to be treated 100 years back or today? If you look on a global scale, you can see the world has become better, yeah? Analphabetism has dropped down, the lifespan of people has gone up. You have less dictatorships. Democracy is on the move, although we have the feeling this is not true. No, on the global scale, things are getting better. But what we need to do is we have to discuss, because progress is so fast that we really have to settle laws, sometimes avenues, sometimes even aims, in a much faster and dynamic way than we did in the past. In the past it was slow, we had time. Now we have to think of it. And we should think about what is the aim of all this progress. Where does the route of the future lead us to? And my big hope is, it is not the future of the egoistic. It is not the future of the only business model driven people, but it is our future. It is the we society. It is the big chance we as the first generation in mankind have, because we can change our own present. Progress is so fast. This is not progress which is going to take place in 50 or 100 years, but now. But this is what we have to look for, and yeah, this is part of what I say in the book, and I want to end with the quote from Picasso, which I think so is just one fantastic person. I think so he was Spanish. I mean, some say no, he was French. No, he was Spanish. And I hope the translation is correct, but it shows you three aspects. The first is, well, humano moderno, that's us. And we have to see that on one side we have the fear of letting loose. This fear is there because change means, okay, it's discomforting. We have to let loose. Disruptive sometimes. Worrisome because structures change. But all the same, we have to look at progress in a positive way, because we have to discover the nuevas posibilidades, the new possibilities. And this, I think so, is the new culture we need in this fantastic age we are living in. A culture which on one side asks questions, is critical, but on the other side is open towards the new. And if we do that, I think so, we will all together write a success story. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ranga. Creo que necesita... Ah, tienes el traductor.
Thank you very much, Ranga. Translator, hello. We'll have some minutes because Ranga will sign the book later on. I think that we can't be here at 9 p.m. Okay, so we have just some minutes for to talk, to sign his books, and I think that we won't have time for Twitter questions. I think, well, that you have created a cognitive dissonance that is quite deep, at least in my case, because yes, we have to be open to innovation, and we have a future that can be really brilliant, optimism, etc. But yes, well, in the book you speak about fear. We shouldn't be afraid. Fear is paralyzing, and I share that. But I truly respect fear. My question is, what attitude should we have towards these technological progress that you have just said that are increasingly fast? This is maybe one of the most dramatic changes. We have always gone through changes throughout history, but they are increasingly faster. It doesn't seem that they are going to stop. And as you explain in the book, we don't have time to adapt ourselves. And there are some pressures, economic pressures, political pressures that are, well, I feel respect for them. If you don't want to use fear, what's our attitude? Risk or opportunity towards this uncertain future that we face?
An uncertain future, but just take one example. We adapt quite fast, much faster than we think. The mobile phone, I said, was just invented, the smartphone, 11 years back. Now, if I look in the audience, people are sitting there. We are all using it. We have adapted in a very fast way where we can see advantages. What I think so is important is that we have a view where not everything what is technically possible will fit us or fit our goals. So in the course of a development which is so fast, we now have a new sort of challenge, which is we have to question it in a much more intensive way, which does not mean rejecting progress, but which means sort of leading the progress towards a direction which is our direction. And this is important because we see nowadays the advent, the movers in some areas where it's just the business model. The business model is not the only application we have. I mean, Wikipedia was not invented in Silicon Valley. Wikipedia is not really a great business model. I mean, Walsh and his friends are not, Jimmy Wales and his friends are not millionaires, but it is great for us, for an entire culture, for the small kid living in Tanzania who now, if he has an internet access, he's able to sort of have a pick of the world knowledge. So I think so we always have to realize in progress there were always two sides. We have the same in the invention of the automobile. At the beginning, I mean, I remember the front page of a newspaper from Vienna from the year 1913, and you see a car and a skeleton, the death driving the car. People were afraid. But nowadays we would say, okay, cars are not too bad. I mean, they are sometimes critical, but they help us. So we have this duality always, but it's compressed in a view where now we have to decide on a much faster pace.
Y no solo, not only in technology, not
only in technology. I mean, there were people that was hungry some decades ago, and now they're not hungry anymore. That's good. But we have obesity and diabetes. We've gone too far. Okay, so the abuse of technology or other things could lead us to undesirable consequences. You've mentioned a topic that is very important for the society as a whole. For us, the communicator, is very important. That is fake news, the false news. I don't know where we can find a solution for that. I mean, it's not only that we have fake news. The fact is that, well, you've mentioned that They are using algorithms to see through our Facebook or our social media if we have doubts with a political candidate, to issue specific information to make us be doubtful. I mean, they're using fake news, the data that they have to manipulate our behavior in the end. So, you've made a good diagnosis. I know that the solution is difficult, but please be a little bit clear. I mean, I'm a scientific speaker, and I think, well, I have a responsibility, and I sometimes feel useless. I mean, in Germany, have you been able to fight against fake news as a scientific journalist as you are? Or do you think that it goes beyond our control if we have to do something that we haven't done?
Realize is, first of all, if we take an analysis of how does this fake news arise, we see that the sort of very commercial setting of social networks is part of the problem. So communication, which used to be communication in a democratic way, I mean, in Germany, in television, for example, we just had non-commercial television when I started. Commercial television came much later. But now we suddenly see that this sort of commercial impetus of creating activity is perhaps the wrong way. And slowly we start to see that, well, we have to dampen this. We have to dampen these hysterical phases. The second thing is we have to develop a culture of data. This is new. I mean, if you possess something, I mean, if you have your flat, you're living here in Madrid, I suppose you have a flat somewhere, you can protect your flat. I mean, you have a door, you have a lock, and if I would enter your flat and just take out your television, you would call the police and arrest me. We as a society have a grammar for these very elementary things. With data, interestingly enough, we all still don't have this grammar. Because I can steal data from you, steal in a certain way, and you don't even realize that I steal data. So, and I can use it, and I can use it and combine it and use it even against you. So we have to, in a short time, realize that we have perhaps the same rules than with your flat, with data. And there are some ideas. Last week in Japan we were discussing with people from science about the idea of taxing data. Should there be a tax for data? Should data cost? Should we encrypt data in a way? Should we have some companies which are not allowed to collect data? Should we have, in relevant areas like the media, perhaps an openness? I mean, can we allow that the main media, social networks nowadays, can influence politics in a miserable way without the rules that normal journalism have? I mean, as a journalist, you know, you cannot write everything. I mean, there are some rules. At least in Germany, I know, in television, if I say something really wrong, somebody can sue me. So we're slowly developing it. But I think so. The main quality is we are entering a new age where the abstract data is something where we still not have the feeling of A, what it's worth, B, the impact it can have on our lives, and C, data and protection rules which are slowly coming. I mean, in the European Union this year at last we have the first sort of data protection which already helps a little bit, not enough, but a little bit.
Sí, no, en el libro que...
Yeah, in the book, well, of course I recommend it. It says that, the first football game in history didn't have a referee, because at that moment in time they didn't need it. And when the first cars appeared, they didn't have street lamps, because it was when things started to grow, to be more important, and they started to need rules. And I think that these are the rules that he's talking about. If you have any question, now I'll give the floor to you. But we both work on TV. But I think that we are both quite critical. I remember being at a prize award ceremony. Okay, there was a representative from a TV channel here in Spain, who's saying that the TV shows are what you find between ads and ads. So, I mean, the important thing are the ads, what gives us the money, and the programs come after. I mean, we do them depending on the ad. So I would like to quote some of the sentences that you mentioned in the book. Structural change of media, the rude battle to catch the attention of the spectator, to tend to overacting, there's some kind of asking for help, this is just a mere business, inflamed speakers, they fight and we never see a real analysis, and some other expressions. So on TV, do you think that, well, I don't know if this is a trend that is going to be corrected in some way, because it's still very influential. I mean, maybe it's going to disappear.
I'm right now working on an interesting project. The project is very simple. We have a lot of debates, political debates, and you have one side which is very emotional, very often the fake news side, and on the other side you have the voice of science, the voice of enlightenment, the voice of the facts. And somehow we are not able to convey the message. I mean, look at the debate of migrations. You have people showing you business, and the other side speaks about statistics. And we all understand that people don't really like statistics. This is not really sexy. I mean, you don't reach people. And I was talking to many of the presidents of the science organizations in Germany, but also to the directors of TV stations, and I say, we have to slowly create a language for transferring facts. A language, how do we show people what is relevant? I mean, you can do that in graphics, you can do that in small films, but you can you have to develop a grammar for that. So in other ways, if you want to communicate science, what we at last need is a science of communicating. Knowledge. Knowing, well, if I say this, what is going to be the impact? And I think so there we have a new challenge where we have to develop a new language. It's the same as with the first printing presses. Before there were printing presses, I mean, if you go to old churches and you look at the old pictures, these were pictograms. These were stories told in pictures. So that was the way before people could read, that you had to tell a story. And with the printing press, people started reading and had a different understanding of facts. Now we have a same sort of phase transition, because at last in the digital age we have to learn a new language to transfer and transmit facts in a way which is plausible to the many and which is correct, naturally. So I think so this is one project where you need not only the science, not only the fact people, you need designers, graphical people, psychologists who really understand what is the impact. How can you convey risk? Take one example. How can you convey risk? I mean, I could do a quiz with you. I could do a quiz with you right now and say, okay, you have a disease. Okay, let me do the quiz, if I may. You have a disease, and this disease, it's a seldom disease. It turns out 1 in 1,000 has this disease. Okay, 1 in 1,000. And now this disease is, you know, stomach pain, and it's it will kill the person. 1 in 1,000. One morning I wake up and I have a stomach pain, and I go to my doctor, and my doctor tells me, oh, it could be this strange disease, but we have a test, and the test has a 99% security, 99% trustworthy. I will make the test with you. He makes the test. The next morning I phone him and I say, how is the result? And the doctor says, the test is positive. Now my question, What is the chance that I really have this disease? The test is 99% safety. Huh? If you come to think of it, it's quite interesting. And this shows you we have to learn to transfer. Most people will say, okay, 99% test, I'm dead. It's not the case. What happens is there's 1% wrong positive, false positive, okay? I said 1 in 1,000. So just imagine you do the test with 1,000 people. There's just one who is really, got it. But 1% means there will be 10 people with false positive results. So in other words, with this test, I am 1 of 10 possible. So in a few words, the probability is just about 10%, so I'm not dead. This is a very simple example which shows you we're very bad in communicating risk. And you know the risk is there every time you take a drug. So how can we communicate risk in a way where people understand it? This is just one small example, and I think so we have many more. How do we communicate insecurity or not knowing all the facts? How do we communicate risk? How do we communicate sort of facts which sometimes contradict our feelings? And this is going to be a big challenge, I think so, in the next years, if we want to save the language of enlightenment.
No, and this idea that it's a new language, que yes. La gente puede reconocer como el lenguaje.
So people can recognize this language and not confuse it with a different one. So let's see if we have any quick question, interesting question. So please, this man in blue. Thank you very much. Yeah, just as about the fake news. Could we use the blockchain technology so that when there is a news, the blockchain can certify this or not? So in this case that the news is a fake, the miners would be disqualified.
Very often what happens in fake news is, where is the source? So from where does this news spread? And is it valid? Because very often what we see is in the news that we have mutations. You know, it starts and then it gets retransmitted and, you know, it goes on. And it's not only fake news in the terrible political sense. I mean, you can see it nowadays in television. I'll give you one example in Germany. In Germany you have a little bit of snow. So much snow. What happens? The one newspaper says it snows. The next one says, well, there are some areas where the snow is a bit higher. So it grows and it grows. And at the end, in the evening, you will see in the primetime news a snow reporter reporting of snow. We have a tendency to exaggerate. Perhaps this is not really European. This is perhaps more American.
You know,
if you in the US at breakfast, I mean, just order fried eggs and look at the reaction of the waitress. I mean, I do that. I order fried eggs, and she says, "Oh, what a lovely choice!" And I say, "No, I just eggs." Oh, it's incredible. I mean, look at the language, huh? Yeah, awesome. I mean, you can't survive California without awesome. I think so. We should be a bit more European sometimes and a bit more cool.
Yo viví una temporada en Estados Unidos y decía, ostras.
But blockchain could be a possibility to certify the origin, not only for news, for clothes. I mean, we have T-shirts and we don't know from where they come. Who picked the cotton? Who put the dye? Who sewed them? Is it some factory in Bangladesh? We have certificates, we don't really trust them. With blockchain, and I have friends working on exactly such a project, they try to certify in a false-safe way the supply chain of products. So there are chances, yes.
Si quieres, para poder dar oportunidad.
If you want to give some possibilities to people to express their point of view, we'll ask for 2 or 3 questions in a row.
Was very insightful and very inspiring. But I have one question and one comment.
Okay.
Question is, according to the last part of it, seems to me that you were in favor of technology assessment, in favor of society controlling technological development. That's the question. But if the question is yes, that I think is going to be yes, then the Picasso's comment is in contradiction, because Picasso speaks about opportunities, I mean, to be protected by the opportunities of new possibilities. How do you combine those dimensions?
Do you prefer to answer, or if it's quick, or
I can give a fast answer. My interpretation of Picasso is that he shows the culture, as he says in his quote, of the modern man, who on one side has to let loose and on the other side has to be open. And I think so this openness is something as a society we all have to learn. Progress is not anymore the general marching and we marching behind, but we have to sort of deal out things. And we also have to establish a culture to do it, because it can also backfire in the sense of populist cultures wanting just this direction. It has to be reflected. But I think so, it's not a contradiction, at least in my interpretation, and we need both, openness and the we society.
Una pregunta allí y después una aquí.
Mejor en español, ¿no? Bueno, enhorabuena.
Well, congratulations, Ranga. Well, I think, well, that the explanation has been great, but we have seen many data. So, about one of the things that you've said, I would like to ask, well, you've said that in 2015, machines see better than we do, or recognize visual patterns better than we do. So what's your opinion about when they will think as we do, or better than we do? Global intelligence, I think that this is the big question. The machines are better than us doing individual things. When will they be better than our brain, if they are able to do that? If they're going to be, and when?
First of all, we as humans do many different tasks. What we see already now is that there are some tasks where machines have become better. Chess, the game of Go. Think of AlphaGo. They play better Go than a human can. Now, if you go on, there are some people, and yesterday I had a discussion with a scientist who is one of the inventors of these neural network systems, long, short-term memory networks. He's a Swiss scientist. And he says, well, you just have to do the mathematics. I also discussed with Ray Kurzweil, same idea. Do the mathematics so you can extrapolate how many neurons you have in your brain, how is the growth rate of computers, and you can then sort of extrapolate and say, okay, somewhere in the year 2040, the computer will be as good as a human brain. Just a few years later, it will be as good as all the human brains. This is an extrapolation with that what the machine can do. But, now comes the but. The question is, and this is almost a philosophical debate, does a machine at a certain point of complexity have self-awareness? Is a machine able to reflect the own aims? Now, the scientist says yes. He's already looking at some models, and you know, one machine learning robot looking at another machine learning robot, and he identifies areas where he says, they are starting to think of strategies. But I'm not sure whether this is going to be the case. I'm only sure of one thing, which is some people claim at the end the machines are going to take over.
Pero la pregunta es si nosotros también sabemos lo que es la...
So the question is that if we are aware of the fact of what consciousness is, if we are aware of that.
we don't really know. We don't really know, if we are honest, what intelligence is. Huh? We speak of artificial intelligence, but if we are honest, there is no really true definition of human intelligence. There is not. I mean, for years there has been research. They are so-called IQ tests, but these IQ tests have nothing to do with true intelligence. They look at some aptitudes, and they are quite interesting because they have a cultural bias. So you do an IQ test in Western Europe, you do the same test in other countries, and people fail because the culture is different. So I think so one thing is the definition, but the other question is, do we allow intelligence into many areas, or do we have areas where we say, okay, we want to have it out? Are machines going to set the goals, or will we still set the goals? And I think so we have a very intrinsic reason to stay on top. So even if machines could, in theory, be better than humans, I think so humans have a quite good interest to survive and to say, okay, we will tame the machine, just as we tamed horses, or in my childhood, elephants. You know, elephants are quite strong, but you could see the small mahout riding on an elephant, and perhaps we are like the small mahouts riding on elephants of intelligence, but we control them.
Vale. Tenemos, mira, tiempo para un...
So we have time for one last question. Please be brief, and the answer too, please. I would like to ask, how do you think about technological singularity, especially in the short period of time that he proposes it?
Singularity. Well, this is first of all, a concept, and one of the promoters is Ray Kurzweil. And I can tell you, I have had discussions with Ray. At the end, it was total singularity, because in the evening we drank so much red wine that at the end we were all the same level. But the idea behind it is, yes, you could look at evolution and say evolution have changes, and we are just an intermediate period in that evolution. And we create intelligence machines, they take over, and they will look for new ways to survive. They will strive out to planets, and we will see a sort of a galactic explosion of a new intelligence. This is a vision. But I think so. I'm very egoistic, and I always argument with Ray on that point, that I say, you may be right, but we as humans have a very innate interest. And we know that it's us first, humans first. Just like Trump says. Humans first. And I think so this is something we will learn in the next years, because already now you have a mobile phone. You can be reached day and night. I have an email account. Everybody can send me an email, even during my holidays. And what do? In my holidays, I put in an automatic replier saying, sorry, I'm on a holiday, I don't read mails, I will delete the mails. My post office is open then and then. So what do? I do not accept the rules of technology, but I impose the human rules, the human desires. And I think so this is going to be the fight in the next years, that in many areas machines could do things, but we humans say no. We want to do it that way, and we don't want to have more. I mean, you could imagine a future where everybody makes beauty makeup and, you know, wrinkles and body shaping. We would have a world where everybody would look great, but it would be a boring world. So I'm married to my wife for 27 years. I still love her. She looks, you know, she has hair turning gray, her skin is not the skin of an 18-year-old girl, but I love her because there is something deeper than what a machine can see. And I think so we accept deficiencies because we are human. If we accept these deficiencies, we remain humans. If we want to just be perfect, we become machines. So I think so accepting our mistakes in a positive way, our weaknesses, is perhaps at the end of this fantastic discussion something which is going to come out. So don't want to be perfect. Be human. Be sort of full of errors. Try to correct them naturally. But this is the difference with machines. And by the way, intelligent machines most probably will become very human. They will also have their moods. We cannot calculate if they react in this or that way. And at the end, it's quite interesting, you know, you have to create all these machines which are at last something like humans. It's nicer to directly speak to a human, I think so. It's a bit like a lot of innovations, yeah? We created cars, and then we take the car and we drive to a fitness studio. And in the fitness studio we cycle. And we can ask myself, okay, perhaps we could just cycle without going to a fitness studio. So in a certain way, the future is sometimes setting these priorities. These are our priorities. And we should be proud of them. Poor machines. Claro. They are so perfect. Poor they are.
Claro, durante un tiempo nos hemos estado...
Okay, so for some time we've been adapting to technology, but it's the technology who has to adapt to us.
It is not the technology by its own, it's us pushing a technology in a certain direction, setting the priorities. So this is us. And perhaps we have to question that the grammar of this, which has been very economical in the digital age at least, yeah, with the Googles and the Amazons and the Apples becoming very rich, yes, we have to all together realize there is more. I mean, in my book, I quote Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, who was working as a scientist in CERN in Switzerland. He could have patented the World Wide Web, and he certainly would be one of the richest people on this planet. But he said, this is for free for everybody. And I think so this is another quality we have to think of. It's not only economia. It's a bit more. And we are slowly realizing that, well, there are more things than just economia. We don't define ourselves just by the jobs, but perhaps by more. Perhaps the impact of artificial intelligence in our economy, which could reduce the time we have to work, which is the history of technology, is reducing the time. 100 years back, I mean, ask your grandparents. The workers had to work 80 hours a week. Now, we are slowly working less and less. We have more time for poetry, for art, for things which are quite human.
Ranga, many thanks.
Thank you, Ranga. And, well, thank you all.
Si estáis interesados en...
If you're interested in...
firmando libros en una mesa dispositada allí. Vale.
And thank you for coming.